Leanne, what would you say your earliest football memory was?
Definitely primary school football for me. I grew up in a generation that girls weren't supposed to play football, and I was quite clearly one of those that broke the mould in terms of knocking down doors and insisting that that was made possible. But I definitely go back to kind of primary 6, primary 7. It would have been being part of the boys' football team at that time, so being the only girl in, I think, the west of Scotland in terms of that district league that was playing, and we went on to win a quadruple in my final primary school year, which is still one of my biggest achievements to date, I think.
Do you remember the first football match you attended?
Do you know what I do? It was a Scotland under-21s game. I don't remember who it was against, but it was one of those situations where the coach of the team at that time had managed to access tickets the way we do now in terms of driving the game and trying to get young fans along. And I remember being at Hampden and watching that under-21s game, going in the kind of minibus with all the other kids, and almost being like just the first outing really that you would remember. So yeah, that's probably the first one.
Who was your football idol growing up?
Steven Gerrard. Saying that now is probably a bit strange, being at Rangers as well, looking at the story, but he was probably the reason why I wore number 8 as well on the back of my shirt. I was obsessed with him growing up as a young person, a midfielder, a centre mid. Could never quite master the technique, I don't think, the same as him, but went on to carve out not a bad career, I suppose.
Do you remember the moment you thought you could become a professional football player?
In all honesty, no, and I still pinch myself now to look back in the career that I had and the memories that I shared and the achievements that are there, because I think throughout my career and even now to an extent, you still feel that you're trying to overcome a bit of adversity in the women's game and drive it forward and convince people that it's here to stay, and that was probably how it felt throughout my career. But certainly, you know, there was a sliding doors moment back in 2015. I had a wonderful run at Glasgow City and some great times there in terms of the success we had, and then to have that opportunity to go down and play at Notts County in the WSL was for me, you know, probably where it all really felt like the stars had aligned, and I had managed to get myself to where I always thought I could be without really having that vision that it was absolutely possible. So to go down there and play in England for the time that I did, and you know, when you go and play in an FA Cup final at Wembley in front of 35,000 people, I think even for people that knew me and friends and family, you know, that had followed my journey, that for them was also, you know, a moment that I think they all realised that it wasn't a lot of nonsense for all those years before.
What do you remember about your international debut?
Not very much, if I'm being honest, because I was pretty young at the time and it had all happened really quickly. I probably remember more my second spell coming back into the national team, where we went on and obviously then qualified for the Euros and the World Cup certainly. But as a young player, that's the one thing that, you know, I try and encourage players now to live in the moment a little bit more. I think in football it's easy to take things for granted, you know, and you assume that those milestones will come and they'll come again, and that's not always the case. So probably the one thing that I would change actually is to go back, and if I could relive my debut again, I would probably hang on to the memories just for a little bit longer and really appreciate it.
Yeah, what would you say your favourite Scotland memory was?
There's a few. I think, you know, the World Cup is a go-to for other people when I speak about the women's game and achievements over the years. But probably actually the qualification for the Euros in 2017 was the sweetest of them all. And I know once we got to the tournament, we lost a lot of key players that ultimately then missed out on the opportunity to play at the tournament. But when I look at the journey that Anna Signal and Anne Helene had taken on in terms of the 12 years of dedication to the women's game in Scotland, and the players that were there at that time, the likes of Gemma Fay and the caps that she had amassed, and you know, players like Jo Love and Ifeoma Madike, I think for them it was, you know, unbelievable to think that we had got there and we had finally managed to overcome that, and we had a super talented group and players now that are still continuing their careers all over Europe. So I think for us to finally get to that major tournament was everything that the national team had been longing for, to be part of that group, but to share those experiences with some really special people was the best bit about it.
I guess just on that note, what would you say the highlight of your whole professional career was?
The shared experiences and the memories, and again I can say that probably because I'm a serial winner and I've won an awful lot in my career. And that I'm really proud of, and that makes retirement a lot easier when you look back and you can look at those medals and memories and photos, but actually the people that you're in the dressing room with, the people that have guided you, that have supported you, that have been there and ultimately have shared that experience with you, the memories are the best bit about it.
Who would you say the best player that you've ever came up against was?
Do you know what, there's been a few, obviously in terms of Scotland and for the most part being the underdog, but I've came up against Kim Little on a number of occasions and obviously shared the pitch with her in the dressing room as a teammate, and she's world class, like there is no doubt about that. So I think I would be doing her a disservice to go and look elsewhere and pick somebody else from another national team. So no, Kim Little for sure.
Who would you say the best teammate you've had, the sort of player you've been closest to?
Again, there's been so many in terms of roomies over the years, and you know, laughs and jokes and the ones that get you. I'd struggle to name one, to be honest. I'd probably offend people as well. I think, you know, looking at as close to now in my previous role at Glasgow City and Leanne Ross, the two of us were coupled together, obviously namesakes, and branded as the two Leannes, and I think we will forever be that. Shared a room with her for a number of years with the national team as well, and we know each other extremely well, which will make it really strange probably being in opposite dugouts now moving forward. But for her as a friend and a teammate, you know, and a leader and a support network, guys, she's absolutely top.
Just on obviously your coaching career, what would you say the main motivator or driving factor was in getting into coaching?
The love of the game. You know, again, it's a bit cliche, but I don't think you can remain in football and have a career that spans 20 years and continue to coach without having that love and that passion and that desire to continue to, one, first and foremost, better yourself, but also to invest in other people and create a better experience and journey for them as well. And again, I'll go back to being a serial winner. What motivates me is winning, and nothing can really replace and replicate that match day experience than being in the thick of it. Feels a bit different being on the other side of the white line, but actually contributing to that and preparing a team, you know, in a high performing team, that's a huge driver for me.
What would you say are the key elements that a player needs to have to play in one of your teams? Mentality
is huge. I think resilience is an absolute must. I think technically and tactically, you know, working with good players certainly helps. You know, I've got a firm belief that the way I coach and the way I empower players and people, that I can always make them better. But ultimately to have that drive and determination to better yourself and to be the best version of yourself every single day. If you're a player and you want to play in my team, if you bring that to the table every single day and you work along with me in terms of my vision and my philosophy, you know, I think the two will marry together really nicely.
Yeah, and just lastly, what excites you the most about starting your role here?
Everything about it. You know, I think where the club is just now, in terms of the change that's going on in recent times, I think it's probably one of the most exciting times around the club in certainly recent times. So I think from the outside looking in, everybody can feel that excitement and that buzz. I think looking at an already successful women's team and what they've achieved in the last couple of seasons, looking at the dressing room and the group of players that's in there, and looking at the staff and the network and the facilities and the resources around the club and that alignment, you know, speaking to Kevin Thelwell, the sporting director, and his vision for the club and how he sees that alignment, for me is really exciting. I think to understand that empowerment is there for the staff to go and be the best that they can possibly be is absolutely everything.